Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Randomly Selected, powered by the Silver Room. My name is Mario. Thank you so much for checking us out. Don't forget to rate and review. We really appreciate you guys hanging with us and listening to this show. It means a lot to everybody. And with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to Priya Shah. Priya Shah is the business, the whole thing. Priya and her origin story begins our show today. We also talk about how she was involved with the campus rewrite at the University of Illinois in the mid to late 2000s. And then we also ask, why is the, quote, "this is not who we are," unquote, narrative so hard to shake for the United States versus other countries based on her worldly travels? And how do you help show support for the youth in our city? It's Priya Shah on Randomly Selected.
Where do I start? I don't know. I grew up in Oak Park, so right outside the city.
West Side.
West Side, yes. Always lived on the West Side, too.
Fancy West Side.
It's a fascinating community because it's so diverse. And so I just grew up being around everybody and being friends with everybody. Yeah. And I actually didn't realize how segregated the world is until I got to university. And I saw people just hang out with each other, and I was like the weird kid that would be hanging out with every group of people. Yeah. And I didn't realize like how much of a unique experience that is. And I think it shaped a lot of how I see the world, even people that I connect with. And I just think that there's such a richness with connecting to so many different walks of life that more of us need to experience that.
I know that, you got a million different titles, educator and model, which I also want to talk to you about. Where did you go to university? U
of I in Champaign.
So now, here you are from Oak Park. You're down in Chambana. and I imagine during that time, what years are we talking? Without telling too much of your...
I graduated in 2009.
Okay, so we're talking about a pretty good time down at U of I. It's thriving. The campus is booming and all that. And there's a lot of change happening on campus around 2009. How involved were you in that kind of campus rewrite that they did down at U of I?
I was pretty involved, but, during university, I actually studied abroad a lot. So I wasn't always on campus. I was traveling a lot, and I did recognize the unique opportunity you have to travel while you're in college and, and live in a different part of the world and still be able to move that towards your education. So I was in Cape Town, South Africa, and Bahia, Brazil, and Istanbul, Turkey. And man, any other opportunities for me to travel that came up, I would be there,
I'm fascinated by Cape Town. I want to go really badly.
It's my favorite place. It's
looks so beautiful.
It's so beautiful, and I think that really taught me about racism in America. Because apartheid was within our lifetime, right? And it was just really fascinating to see how they really acknowledged and confronted their history. And that was the first time I realized that we haven't at all. And they are very blunt about recognizing, a lot of the hurt and displacement that happened. And it's not something that's like PC to talk about. And because of that, they've been able to make so much more progress within each other, their relationships, talking to each other. And they also are very forward about the problems that they still have. And it just made me reflect on like how this doesn't happen in the States, even though our history of racism is much older. And, it made me really want to be more bold about confronting and exploring what that really means in the rest of the world as well as in Chicago.
Why do you think I heard old man Ebro say something very interesting. He talked about how there's this new phrase when we talk about people like Trump or when we talk about police brutality or racism. That's not who we are, when that's very much not just who we are, it's what we've always been. Why, outside of the obvious, which is the obvious white supremacy, why is it that this narrative is so difficult to shake, you think? That this is not who we are, which is a lie. Why do we seem to have so much trouble telling the truth here about our shady ass past?
I think America is such a young country with a very young identity. And a lot of the places that I travel, these are really old, ancient cultures, right? There's a huge sense of tribalism, old religion, language that everybody has touch and have a connection to. And here I think people are still finding that and trying to figure out what that means. American culture is very new, not only for Americans, but also the world. And that's why I think the world is really captivated by America because it is so new, it is also very innovative and different. And it has the ability to influence a lot of different cultures, because what happens when you have a really historical heritage, like I come from very old heritage, anything that you create, including art, business, the way you operate your family, always ties to that history. Yeah. And when in America, when your history is much shorter, it's so different how we do things here. And so the rest of the world looks at us like, whoa, it's like a little baby watching a little baby walk for the first time and say, oh, look at what they just did. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're at that stage where we're still figuring out and learning. And therefore, for us to understand some of the hurt that we've had in the past, it's also hard to grapple with.
Because it seems like if we were able to, if we were able to address the truth, it's a lot easier than to try to keep supporting this BS lie of us, not being who we are. Mm-hmm. I'd like to connect that with the work you do with young people and how we talk a lot about policing our communities, and in turn, and most times it ends up damaging our young people. We just saw the whole incident that went down here in Chicago a couple of weeks ago downtown. You wrote something a couple of years ago about, or last year maybe, about the same thing. I did, and I had to look at the date. I was like, wow, she must have wrote this like last week. It was May of last year that you wrote it. It's the same thing. Where are we with young people in Chicago? Why won't we acknowledge the fact that they are not feeling what we are trying to get them to feel? And your work around these young folks, help me to understand how I should be more of a supporter and an ally to them, instead of getting turned off when I hear they go downtown and act out.
It's a very challenging time because of the impact of COVID, and that's going to continue to happen. We really need to acknowledge how much of an impact that's happening on young people. You had a period of time where human development is stunted, right? And this is a period of time where kids really need a lot of social interaction, positive social interaction, to really develop who they are. And especially in low resource communities, that's already a challenge, right? Because you're facing a lot of different obstacles, let alone now what we've come into is even less of a supportive environment to explore that. And so naturally humans will explode, right? That's not something that only young people do. Adults do it all the time. Yeah. And so we have to understand, like, where are we at with young people expressing themselves, and for us to positively support them. Because also with the challenges at home, adults are also going through their own emotional kind of expression, limitations of expression, and that feeds the kids.
Continuing on the topic of the youth, what are we not doing in terms of listening to ideas being brought to us, and how can we implement them, the ideas that the youth brings? That is, we ask Priya also about being a model, like for real model. Also, what types of personal or societal challenges did she face growing up different, and how that impacted her high school basketball tenure? Yes, she used to ball too. And also, what began what is one of the dopest organizations in Chicago, The Simple Good. More with Priya Shah here on Randomly Selected.
I think it just first starts with making our kids feel valued. Being heard, and yes, you are a place in the society. Now let's figure out, how do your words get the resources to make some positive impact that I'm going to support you with? That's all of what we do at The Simple Good. We hear their simple goods. We talk about how can that really make an impact, and now what's the next step to really implement it on an everyday basis, no matter how small it is. And that's how we move towards possibility, and creating a community that really supports and values that is the only way that we're going to shift direction. Yeah. When I was born, I had the same challenges. People wrote me off because of everything that I was born into this world. And because I found individuals that did value me and see me past these negative presumptions people made about me, I moved towards that direction. You know, I was held accountable to move towards that. But I don't think that we right now are valuing even ourselves sometimes, and let alone our children. Yeah. And we really need to create a community of accountability that does that for everybody.
I'm going to talk about the simple good, I promise. But I've got to ask you about your modeling career. So I've known you for a while, and I've seen pictures, and I go, man, she's a model. She's like a professional, hey, come in, photo shoot, big lights model. How did you get started modeling?
I just got scouted actually at a charity event by an agent. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
just being you. I know what you did too, walking around the room. Hi, hey, how you doing?
We had a simple good pop-up at the thing. I was working the event, and I was like, okay, well, here it was. And it was like a fashion charity event. And yeah, he approached me, and I didn't really, that can happen, can be lucrative sometimes. And I looked him up, and I saw the agency. My friends, I knew a few friends that were a part of it. And I was like, all right. But I really went into it intentionally. I'm not modeling just because, you know. Yeah. My goal is, and I told him too, is one, bring more awareness to the work that I'm doing, but two, really create a platform that a person like me is represented, and my look, a person that's a woman of color born with one hand, is now normalized. Because a brand is saying, yes, this is something that we want, and you've seen enough images of a person that looks like me that now no one's going to freak out when they see a human being that looks like me,
Right.
So.
I guess I'm getting personal now. When I was little, when my sister was married to the gentleman she was married to, his mother got trampled by a horse and lost from her elbow up.
Oh, man.
Right? This was the most functioning human being I had ever met in my life. So much so that I heard the word disability and I was like, who are they talking about? Because everybody I've ever seen with a quote-unquote disability, it gets it together and does what they have to do. Mm-hmm. You mentioned being born with one hand. What kind of challenges did you face? Not physical challenges, but just people challenges when you were growing up.
Yeah, I mean, I think so many, and it's mental challenges of people and their perception of what I could do and who I could become. There's a lot of shaming about who I was, and because of that shame, folks just wouldn't give me an opportunity to try anything I wanted to do. Like, play basketball, even go outside. Like, I was taught to dress, to always have long sleeves so my hand wasn't shown. And it was really what I realized at a very young age. I was protecting others from feeling bad about who I was and whatever their shame is, and then they place that upon you and limit anything that you can do. And at a young age, I really was thinking, I was like, it's crazy that a 6-year-old could think like, why does the world have so many obstacles?
Yeah.
And at the young age, I realized like the world doesn't actually have that many obstacles. People create them. And that's why you can also overcome them. Because these are man-made obstacles that we ourselves have to push and show the world what possibility actually is.
Did you shoot ball?
Yes, I did. I played till senior year. And senior year in high school, I played and actually got cut my freshman year. So I grew up playing basketball and, I went to Oak Park. It's a big basketball community.
Yes.
And freshman year tryouts, like I was all in, playing summer really hard, like ready for the team. Me and my friends are all going to try out. And I was performing better than a lot of the girls there, and then go to the door with a list of, people that actually make it are on there.
Yeah, I hate that day.
I hated that day.
Cut day is a bad day.
And I wasn't on the list, and I was just like, okay, yeah.
Let's keep it moving.
But I was like really sad because I like knew something was wrong. And also this was, I was in high school. This was my identity at that time. I had moved away from being an artist and really dedicating myself to playing basketball. Yeah. And then it just seemed strange because I found out who made the team, and there were individuals that did not perform as well as me.
You're being nice. They stunk. And you were better than them.
And it turned out that they actually scored less.
Yeah.
And the coach didn't believe what my possibility and my trajectory as a basketball player could be with one hand. So he factored that into his decision on whether I could be on the team.
I'm old, but I'll one-on-one play a game with you.
We can play horse. Look, there's too many injuries at this age.
I'll accept your horse challenge. I don't want to be out here like I was at block party. I was trying to show this little kid. I didn't tell anybody this. I was trying to show this kid this 3-pointer that I have that's deadly.
How the injury starts.
Airball City. And this little kid is looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta go. I think I gotta introduce somebody on the stage, kid. I'll see you. The Simple Good is 10 years old. And we talked about it a little bit. Let's get into it. What made you decide to create The Simple Good?
So the idea of it actually, or the inspiration of it, came at a very young age, partially because of the things I had to go through. And I had a really unique opportunity to volunteer around the world at a very young age in high school. And so one of the first opportunities was to work at Mother Teresa's orphanage in India alongside a lot of different nonprofits in India. If anybody hasn't been to India, you should go. It opens up your eyes to a new way of looking at the world incredibly. And that was really where I learned what it meant to learn and teach resilience. And that really profoundly impacted my life and the way that I saw myself and the things that I had to overcome. I worked with children at the orphanage who had literally been thrown away or set on fire or just discarded because of how they were born. And someone like me could have been in the same type of situation as well. And, the mothers believe that everybody have a privilege and deserve a life. And so that's how they started the orphanage. And what I learned from those kids is that, no matter what they had gone through, they still had the ability to see beauty in other people and around them, even in the smallest ways. And that is what kept them resilient. That ability to see it and acknowledge it was just a really powerful thing. And it made me realize, what am I complaining about? Even though no matter what people say about me and try to put me down, I'm an artist. I can use that to make people happy. I have this ability and this privilege to really do something to support others. And that's how this trajectory of where I am today has really been instilled. And I really thought that I wanted to teach that type of skill set and mindset to other kids that are just like me, that are written off from the jump, just and assume that they're negative, that we can find and share the simple good with the world. And that's how we can leave an impact.
And now 10 years later, how do you feel about what you created?
I feel so blessed that, the world has received it in the way that I've always hoped. Like everything that I really wanted to see from the organization, I can see really happening right now. And I think that The Simple Good is not just a nonprofit that serves youth, but it's also a movement and a way of thinking that I hope to have everyone really hold and uphold it so that we can create safe and peaceful communities for all of us.
When COVID first hit the world, how did somebody so busy like Priya spend her time during COVID? We also talk about the documentary she's working on and her newest endeavor in spirits. Spirits. Here's Priya Shah.
COVID was a huge boom for our organization. We've grown 400% since then. And I have always said that it only took a pandemic for people to understand the importance of our work, like really taking mental health seriously, mental health of our youth seriously, understanding the simple good, because we were all in our place and we really had to find those small instances of good. And actually during the pandemic, I was doing more adult workshops than ever before, because a lot of adults were coming up and saying, I know you do this for the kids, but I think we really need this. And, that's what was a very transforming moment, that everybody recognized how important this is to all of us.
And that expansion of that, from it being just kids to it being now kids and adults, that has to have a lot of worth on these bricks in this town, when people are really asking for help now instead of having to be identified that person needs help. People are a little bit more open now to say, hey, look, I think I need some help.
Yep, definitely. I mean, it was a very vulnerable time. People are asking help in a lot of different ways. We're also used our workshops to do, conversations about unconscious bias and cultural competency. And folks really challenged with understanding the word empathy. And so what I teach is that you can never have empathy for another person if you don't know yourself first, and the many identities that live within us. And once you understand that, that's how you can really authentically connect to another person. And, I'm really like challenged by when people throw that around so recklessly. It's a real movement of spirit that really builds empathy. And we really have to understand that in order to truly create cross-cultural dialogue and connection.
Talk to me about the Building Hope Project.
Yes. So that was an initiative that we did in East Africa before the pandemic. So we built a school in Rwanda and brought our Simple Good mural program to the school. And then we did another initiative in Uganda, which is where my family is actually from. And so it was really kind of a full circle moment to be able to bring our work not only in Chicago, but East Africa. And the beautiful part of it was I was able to allow our students to write messages about their simple good to our students in East Africa and vice versa. And it was a really beautiful way to spread cross-cultural dialogue, build empathy in a very authentic way, and allow both sets of students to feel seen and understand and connect to different parts of the world.
I like the fact that you make it your business to not just localize it. You're doing the global work. Just so you know, I mean, people notice that you're doing the global work, man. You're not messing around.
Yeah.
Reason 1 million why I really like what you're doing. I know that this is a little off of the path we're on right now, but you also do a scavenger hunt. Will there be another one?
Yes, June 24th.
This will be 8?
This is our 8th annual.
I'm looking at it on the computer. I'm just confirming.
Yes, this is going to be our biggest one yet. It's so exciting. And it fundraises for our summer programs. But it's an urban art scavenger hunt all centered around finding the simple good of Chicago. So you have to do acts of kindness, wellness, and find works of art around us. And teams sign up. You get points for each challenge you complete. And the teams with the most point get awarded medals and prizes at an award ceremony that will take this year at the Willis Tower on the 4th floor rooftop. And we'll get first, second, third prize winners. And then we're partnering with our friends at Funky Town to curate our first ever. Yes, they're the homies.
Yes, they are.
First ever Hunt for Good Summer Art Fest. So we'll have majority Black and Brown owned distilleries, breweries, and restaurants do tastings alongside our other community members, live artists, and DJs. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for it. So
I'm not going to give away the piece of art that's here in Hyde Park, but I'll tell you when we're done recording so you can include it in the scavenger hunt.
I think I know which one it is.
Yeah, I don't want to give anybody any clues or hints and have them winning without actually trying. That's going to be dope.
Yeah.
That's going to be dope. And then you're doing, and before we also talk about the adult beverage, you're doing are you still doing the documentary, or is the documentary done?
Yeah, still working on it.
What's the name of it?
That's called Building Hope.
Okay.
So it's the story of myself and my friend Nina, who I partnered with in Rwanda, to basically bring art from Southside Chicago to post-genocide Rwanda. Yeah. And as you're doing this work, exploring, your own traumas and your own identities that you have to confront and face as you give to others. So I'm really excited for it, just to share this kind of deeper journey that a lot of people don't always see when you're doing community work.
And that's all just under the Simple Good umbrella.
Yeah.
Busy. That place is jamming. And if I'll do this on your behalf, if people are interested in finding out more about the Simple Good, they can go to thesimplegood.org. Beautiful website. It's all laid out for you, all the information you would need. I think I'm going to have to buy me some Simple Good stuff.
Please do. We sell them at the Silver Room too.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Everybody needs to pick it up.
I'm going to have to get me a t-shirt for the block party.
Yes, and they're all inspired by our students' words of the simple good. So all those quotes have their names and the neighborhoods. We pick 5 students across all of our programs, and it's done through a public vote. And then we do a limited release t-shirt series. Yes, we have a merchandise business as well. Under the Simple Good.
I'm only chuckling because I know you, right? But you're Priya. I know all the stuff you do, but it's good to actually hear you talk about the stuff you do instead of just people going, "Who's that?" Like, "Oh, that's Priya Shah." What's going on? I don't know. She's here for something. I don't know.
She's always around.
She's here. If she's here, this is good. Yeah, there's a few people in this city that when you see them at something, you go, "Okay, this is legit." I'm glad I came. No joke. Let's talk about the whiskey, the adult beverage. I don't want to get in trouble. It is called Eagle Rare.
Yeah.
And it is a single barrel Kentucky whiskey, straight bourbon, son. When did you get involved in spirits? Okay, that's it. I'm gonna stop the recording. When did you get involved in spirits?
Well, I don't know.
I'm waiting on this answer. I can't wait to hear this.
Well, this was a very unique opportunity. I was not expecting this to happen, but Eagle Rare is like a really well-known, beautiful brand in the bourbon space.
Yeah.
So they're always 10-year aged bourbons, and I recently found the difference between bourbon and whiskey through this process. But they pick charities from across the country every year, only a few, and they selected us to donate a barrel to us that I can hand select and bottle to support our organization. Those barrels have a 2-year wait list, and these bottles are almost impossible to get. So we were very grateful we got picked to this, but this is a really high-end bourbon, and basically they rolled out a few barrels. I hand tasted them to see which one.
Had the quality control.
Well, each barrel tastes different, and I've learned so much based depending on where they're placed in the warehouse, the light, like all these elements in nature really impact flavor, which is such a beautiful thing. And so this is my selection, and I think it's really palatable for anybody that isn't even familiar with bourbon, and so that's why I picked it.
And I do believe it's available at Brownsville Winery. Is that correct?
Yes, we have them at Brownsville Winery. We have them on our website. So basically, if you make a donation of $200 or more, you'll get a bottle of limited edition bourbon that I handpicked. We went down to Kentucky to pick it. It was a lot of fun to learn.
You know, everybody that goes down to Kentucky, you can't go down there and not drink whiskey.
Oh, no. We definitely participated in that tour.
I bet y'all did. As we wrap up this edition of Randomly Selected, we asked Priya about her long-term goals, and with all the amazing things that she's involved with, when does she find some time to be Priya? And also some closing thoughts about the work that needs to be done for our community.
I think what I'm trying to show through The Simple Good is how do we build institutional empathy? How do we really teach and foster humanity within the spaces that we're expected to be, such as school.
Yeah.
Right? Really teaching what is the whole child, and how do we as adults, as educators, as community members, as supporters also ensure that we're whole so we can support children to be that way. And I am purposely doing these different pilots around the world to show how this works anywhere. It doesn't matter the environment that you're in. We're in East Africa. I've taught the Ministry of Education in Croatia, our program. This works everywhere. And how do we I want to eventually show how this concept works globally so that we can build this on a UN level, Peace Corps level, and that's something that we really need to foster. I think that we're sometimes too much in the habit of giving things and thinking that that's the solution, but at the end of the day, we need to give education and spirit, back to humanity so that we can really coexist.
Do you feel like you will be one of the many people who will be reaching out to our new mayor, Brandon Johnson, just to say, hey, listen, we're here. Mm-hmm. Here is something available. One of those words they've been throwing around a lot during this election, the lack of the lack of resources here is a very valuable resource that's available. Mm-hmm. How do you think you'll be trying to?
Yeah, definitely
make that connection.
I appreciate how connected he is to education and the arts, and that is our realm and sphere. So very excited to hopefully connect with him and see how we can do together, because it's been a while since we've seen leadership really focus and talk about education.
It's been a while since we've seen leadership.
Yeah, that too.
I'm just saying. I could have said that out loud. But
yeah, no.
It's been a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that you do have not just the simple good, but there's something else that you're doing. And now the name has just walked right out of my head.
South Asian Solidarity Movement.
Whew. Come on back. So talk to me about that as well.
Yeah. That's a really like an initiative to really engage South Asians in community, which I have always felt that there has been a huge gap. I'm a nonprofit leader here in Chicago, and ever since I've started Not the Simple Good, the least contributing and supportive community has been my own people, South Asians. And I've always thought that was so ironic because we are literally one generation away from poverty. Many of our parents are immigrants that came and we grew up with nothing. I know we didn't grow up with too much. And so we've seen what it means to overcome. And now that we are one of the richest minorities in America, the ability for us to make meaningful economic and social contributions to support each other is huge. Yeah. But we are very disengaged. And I think part of it has to do with the colonialism that most of our parents actually did live under British rule, which is now being passed on. And we really need to confront these truths. So that initiative is really about confronting a lot of these truths and then engaging the Chicago South Asian community to give back in a meaningful way and try to really activate that community to support each other.
And forgive me for having the senior moment, but you do a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah. I'm pretty sure I had it written down, and I knew there was one more thing. The South Asian community in relation with other people of color in the city of Chicago, is, in your estimation, getting better? Is it still room for it to get better?
I think there's an appetite for South Asians really wanting to learn what they don't know. And so it's been great for them to come to a lot of these panels that we've done and really just be vulnerable and saying, yeah, I don't know, you know, what I'm doing. And so creating space for that so that we can activate that. So I think there's a lot of room to grow. It's also been great to meet other South Asians that actually are in nonprofit leadership in Chicago. And all of us kind of all connect on the fact that we're not necessarily always celebrated within our own families, but, being more connected and showing the good that we can create can shift that. So I think overall, we just need more unity in our community to show the impact that we can do, not only for South Asians, but communities outside of our own.
I hear you, and I hear Dr. Rahul Sharma in my head.
Oh, I love
That's my
Rahul.
man.
Yeah, he's dope.
I hear Rahul in my head saying the same thing, because one of the things that makes Funkadesi so dope, that is a really diverse group of human beings, also kind of crazy, but very diverse group of human beings. And one of the things about him and them that I like the most is that they are like you. They're going to where their faces are not always seen. Yeah. And they're like, here we are. We're part of a bigger conversation. Yep. Through the music that they do and stuff. I just felt like shouting out Funkadesi.
No, Funkadesi's amazing. And that's an example of individuals that are doing it. And all of us need to amplify that work and normalize diversity, right? We shouldn't only be hanging out with each other. And that's a challenge that, obviously we know in Chicago we face.
Well. Yeah, too well. I know hanging out with you is always a good time because you are fun. And the idea that you do all this stuff, man, we live in the give people their flowers while they're here thing. They got to get more than flowers for you. You do a lot for our city, and I hope that today is an opportunity. I say today in the general sense, but I hope that this us talking gives people more insight into you, and all this cool stuff you do, and the people that you've helped. Do you? I ask you a question because you teach, and you've been teaching for a minute. Do past students roll up on you?
Yo,
what is that like?
The best thing in the world. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just talked to one of my students, Aziz. He's about to graduate college, which also makes me kind of feel old, but we're not going to talk about that. But he inspired one of our shirts that we sell at the Silver Room. It says, there's beauty in the struggle. And it was just such a cool thing to surprise him with it. But we still talk about it. He's doing amazing. And he told me, I saw he launched a new Instagram page, which is all focused on like positive affirmations and positive thoughts. And then I told him, like, yo, I saw your page. It looks awesome. And he's like, yep, you ingrained it in me, Priya, but I can't ever go back.
Can't go back. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. I'm glad that we had a chance to chat today. You're absolutely one of my favorite people on the planet. So when we talked about the folks we wanted to have in and your name came up, I was like, home run. What time can we do it today? So I've been looking forward to this. I'm always glad, as you could tell when you walked in, to see you, and any support from me that you need for any of the 1 million things you're doing, I will find a way.
Thank you, Mario. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you so much for being on Randomly Selected.
Thanks for having me.
We want to thank Priya Shah for being on our show. Please support The Simple Good. Any kind of way that you can would be helpful and appreciated. And thanks again to the wonderful Priya Shah. Next on Randomly Selected, from Future Firm, and Louis will join us. See you guys soon.